This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Squiz Kids! It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Thursday, September 9. In Squiz Kids Today, Kids and COVID report released. Iceland's big air suckers. Brisbane's first footy final, and Spot, the robotic dog, gets to work. That's what's making news, kids style.
The lowdown.
There were two interesting reports in the news yesterday that had direct implications for kids. The first was a warning from officials that since COVID had kept so many of us indoors and closed so many public pools, fewer kids were getting to swimming lessons, meaning we'll all have to be extra careful at the beach this summer. Because we've all been in some form of lockdown or living under some kind of restrictions during the past year, surf lifesavers are worried that when the weather heats up, there's going to be a rush to the beach, and we'll all have either forgotten our water sense or lost confidence in the water. Which is to say, brush up on your swimming skills before hurling yourself into the surf. The second report out yesterday involving kids had to do with how the dastardly Delta variant of the coronavirus was only having mild effects on children, and that while there were more cases of COVID recorded in schools, kids were generally not passing the virus to one another. According to a report from the National Centre for Immunisation and Research, if kids are catching COVID at all, and for the most part they are still not, only 2% of those kids infected have had to go to hospital. The report also found that kids are not catching COVID off other kids, but overwhelmingly, they're catching it from an adult in their life who hasn't been vaccinated.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in Iceland, where a really clever invention is sucking in polluted air and removing carbon dioxide from it. So, you've heard about this thing called climate change, right? It's being caused by human activity that is putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that in turn is causing the planet to warm up. So a bunch of clever scientists have come up with a machine fitted with huge fans that suck in air. Carbon dioxide in that air is filtered out, mixed with water, and pumped deep underground where eventually it turns into stone. Wow. Now, we'd need many more carbon dioxide sucking machines all over the world to make even a tiny impact on global warming, and ultimately the best way to fight climate change is to change all of our behaviours, but it's an interesting example of how science is being used to solve one of our planet's most pressing problems.
Sport time.
First, it was the AFL Grand Final being relocated to Perth. Now it's the turn of the Rugby League Grand Final. With news yesterday, the big old Festival of the Boot will be played outside of Sydney for the first time in the history of the competition. And the city set to play host to one of the biggest events on the Aussie sporting calendar, well, it's none other than Brisbane. First the Olympics and now the League Grand Final. What a year Brizzy is having. The move has been prompted for the saddest of reasons, because the COVID outbreak in Sydney has meant no large sporting events can take place there. The big game will instead be held at Suncorp Stadium this year, and in a bonus for regional Queensland, preliminary finals will be held in Mackay. Let the games begin.
Animal Kingdom.
When you think dogs and telephone poles, you generally think about how they cock their leg on them for a wee. But in South Australia, a robotic dog called Spot is learning to inspect the poles and report problems back to the humans who can fix them. SA Power Networks is the first utility company, which is a company that provides things like water, electricity and gas, to use a robotic inspector. Although spot dogs have also been used to herd sheep in New Zealand and police social distancing in Singapore. NASA is even training one to explore caves on Mars. Spot is able to scoot around on uneven surfaces, pick himself up after a fall, and even carry up to 14 kilograms of equipment. Good Spot. And the best bit, he doesn't eat much, and you never have to follow him around and pick up his poo. There's a video of Spot at work in your episode notes.
Q&A call out.
Hands up who's excited about the next season of Masked Singer. Will it be the singing kebab, the singing pavlova, or the singing mullet that wins the day? While you ponder that, why don't you ponder this too? Singer, dancer, TV presenter, and fashion designer Dannii Minogue, who also happens to be a judge on the hit singing show, has kindly agreed to take the Squiz Kids hot seat and answer your questions. Maybe you go to dance lessons after school and want to know how she made a career in the entertainment industry. Maybe you're fascinated with how TV shows are made. Or maybe you're a budding fashion designer and you want to know how she comes up with ideas for her clothing label. Take a look at the links to the Masked Singer promo video and to Dannii's website in today's episode notes for inspiration. Then get sending your questions to squizkids@thesquiz.com.au. But you've got to be quick. You've only got until next Tuesday to get your questions in. So get cracking.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. Which city will host this year's NRL Rugby League Grand Final? That's right, it's Brisbane. Question number 2. What's the name of the robotic dog inspecting power poles in South Australia? Yeah, it's Spot. Question number 3. In which country is the carbon dioxide sucking machine busily doing its thing? You got it, it's Iceland.
Shout outs.
It's September 9, birthday for Matilda's captain and Aussie soccer star Sam Kerr. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Zayden from Goomalling, Wilson from Dubbo, Addison from Kempsey, Cameron from Surrey Hills, Taylor from Jugiong, and Siobhan from Adelaide. And belated birthday shout-outs go to Isla from Adelaide and Annabelle from Buninyong. Plus, because our friends in Victoria, Canberra and New South Wales are in lockdown, we're sending out home learning herograms. Ben in Class 3Y at Burraneer Bay Public School sends a herogram to his teacher Miss Yates and wishes her a happy birthday for today. Home learning shout-outs also to the Stage 3 students and Mr Hull, and also Class 5-6H at Abbotsford Public School. A herogram from Georgie to all the Grade 3 teachers at DY Public School, especially Mrs Carnegie for always being so chilled. What's your secret, Mrs C? Another herogram to Mrs Lucas, Mr Nidri, Mrs Dybel and Mrs Burks at Trinity Catholic School in Murrumburra. A home learning shout out to Zoe and Alice from Newport in Victoria, who are currently in 14-day home quarantine, but I believe you're coping very well. And lastly, Ollie in Year 6 at Coogee Public School sends a herogram to his teacher, Ms Murphy. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout-out, or if you're after a classroom shout-out or you'd like to send a home learning herogram, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out. Squiz Kids is proudly supported by the Judith Neilson Institute for Journalism and Ideas.
Squiz Kids! It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.